wanted to discuss misconceptions about sensual movement. And this conversation was prompted by many conversations with my current clients, previous clients, and just what I've seen circling socially, in regards to sensual movement. And I thought rolling into this new decade that it was a good time to have this conversation about what um, our concepts of sensual movement are and are they true? Misconception number one about sensual movement is that sensual movement is innately sexual. And I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely not. Sensuality and sexuality are like sisters that walk hand in hand oftentimes, but they are not the same person. You can be sensual without being sexual, and you can be sexual without being sensual, or you can be both at the same time, right? But they are not the same thing. And sensual movement, a lot of times, is perceived to be sexual. And I will say it can be, you know, but sensual movement does not automatically translate into sexual movement, if that makes sense. So that's the first misconception that many people have. And I thought that that one is important to throw in at the beginning only because I would hate to see someone not explore their sensuality through movement just based on the idea that I have to somehow be sexually expressive in order to do it, and it's just not true. Again, it can be, and I'm here for it. If you know me, you know I'm here for it, but it doesn't always have to be. And let me say this before I move on to the next misconception is that my opinions expressed in this video are based on my ideas around sensual movement and my ways of teaching. So, this is not to say that everybody's ideas about sensual movement is are incorrect in some ways. Just to say that this is the way that um, I approach sensual movement. This is the way I approach my practice, and this is the way that I teach women to. This is the way that I introduce it to my clients. So I introduce it to them first as it is not innately sexual, that you don't have to be sexually or overtly sexually expressive in order to embody your sensuality through movement. It's just not true for me. Um, Now, the second misconception is that sensual movement is limited to a particular body type and or movement level. Again, another idea that's not true. Sensual movement can be practiced by anybody, anywhere, and at absolutely any time, and at any movement level. So, I don't want anyone to get caught up on the idea that I have to be this particular size or in this particular shape in order to explore sensual movement. You do not. Sensual movement is perfect for anybody at any level. And I often hear when I do consults or things like that, women say, "Well, I thought I had to be able to do the split, or I thought I had to." It's like, no, girl, no, ma'am. It's perfect for any level. And you don't need to come in prepared anyway. You don't need to come in already tapped into your sensuality. You don't need to come in or reconnected in any way prior to your sessions or prior to moving with me at least. And I can say it's true to many sensual movements classes around the world is that it usually caters to people of all movement levels. So, no, you do not have to be a certain size. No, you do not have to be have to have practice movement prior to? Absolutely not. You should be able to walk into any session or class and still be fed, spiritually, physically, emotionally, because that's what sensual movement is really about. You should be able to be ignited. You should be able to reconnect no matter what your movement level is. But just to piggyback off of that, you do not have to wear anything in particular in order to be considered sensual. Sensuality does not have a look in any shape, form at all. So I just don't want anyone to get caught up on that idea and then in return question whether or not they are sensual enough or whether or not they're able to access their sensuality. You don't have to wear anything particular, you don't have to be a certain size, and you don't have to be at a certain movement level. Sensuality is for absolutely anybody. The third misconception is that sensual movement is limited to a particular movement modality, methodology, and or space. So, sensual movement is not limited to pole dancing. It is not limited to floor work. It is not limited to whatever else, yoga. It is not limited to these particular movement modalities or particular apparatuses. When you think of sensual movement, you may automatically gravitate mentally towards something in particular based on your experience, right? Or based on what you've seen. All movement is not innately sensual as well. So keep that in mind. Sensual movement is really about igniting the senses and utilizing those senses to have a moment of pleasure, a moment of presence, and a moment of mindfulness. Sensual movement really is centered around the ideas of pleasure and the ideas of being present and aware and connected to breath and connected to your body. I really wanted to get those misconceptions out there for anybody who may be guarded or reserved about possibly exploring their sensuality through movement. I wanted anyone who may have these questions answered and to feel like they are welcomed in these sensual movement spaces and that you are safe to explore in these spaces authentically, that it doesn't matter about your body type. It doesn't matter about how long you've been moving or if you've ever moved your body before. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. It doesn't matter if you're comfortable with your sexuality or your sexual expression at this point. It absolutely does not matter. Come as you are. That's what sensual movement is all about. And really trusting the process and being vulnerable. Sensual movement is extremely vulnerable and it's a great space for healing. It's a great space for awakening. So don't allow the misconceptions of sensual movement to halt you or give you pause about exploring your sensuality throughout movement. I also offer complimentary consultations. So if you'd like to get to know more about my movement methodologies and how I approach sessions, etc., feel free to reach out or click the link and grab a free consultation with me, and I can get all of your questions answered via video or phone.